Hi, and welcome to Relationship Nation. I'm the host, Wayne Martin, and today we have Joshua Johnson, who sits on, you're an appointed city council now, but you're running for a 4-year term.
That's correct, yes.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
I have some really good questions for you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is our second interview, and one of the things that I really wanted to go in depth on was the homelessness problems that we've had in the Reading area. And we kind of wanted to go a little bit deeper than most candidates do. Now, I know you're involved with a mission here in Reading, and it sounds like they're doing some really great stuff. Can you tell us what's going on and what the trajectory is for the homeless problem?
Yeah, absolutely. The mission's been here. The Good News Rescue Mission has been in this area for 60 years. They're celebrating, actually, this Saturday, the Harvest of Hope. And it's kind of our Diamond Year celebration. Huge, huge thing. They've been in this community for a long time. The homeless issue in California, and we can get into some of the history, has grown statewide because I think because of some poor policies and a number of issues that have kind of happened over time. And I would love, there's a lot of debate around it on the right and the left about it, but I think we can talk about it factually. But I think it's something important for Reading people to know. If you don't travel a lot, it's actually what we experience here is actually by percentage a lot smaller than what other cities experience. But it doesn't mean it shouldn't be a focus of ours, and it is.
Right.
The reason why I got involved with Good News Rescue Mission is because when I ran 2 years ago and I started getting, people were telling me the homeless issue was the number one issue. And so I said, great, I want to go interview different organizations in our town, which there are a handful that I was really impressed with. But I really connected with Jonathan Anderson and Lenise Santella, who's the president of the board there, and Jonathan, who's the executive director, and some of the staff. And I saw their vision of what they were trying to do over the next 10 years plus and where they had come from and the impact they're having. And I was so impressed that I after the election, I said, I want to get more involved. So I joined the board, got more involved, and now actually stepped off the board, and I'm helping lead their construction projects. Which is like sober living houses, the day resource center. We have a new intake center that's getting remodeled. There's about an ADU for caretakers' quarters for the women's house, and there's just so many things that we're doing now, and looking at partnership with the city and the county to make a marked difference that has some accountability metrics to it. And the goal at the mission, what I love about it is when they started for the first time taking state and federal and local funds for some of these infrastructure projects, is that it wouldn't be for their core operations. And because the goal is to work your way out of a job.
Right.
Because we want to see the numbers go down. We don't want to, invest in something that just creates the homeless industrial complex, which I think the state of California has really added to. What we want to see is numbers go down in Reading, and we want people to get the help they need. And we don't want them staying in emergency shelter. We want them getting into a addiction recovery program. We want them getting into interim or transitional housing. We want them to be independent. But that usually with certain individuals, almost all of them need some sort of case management and help along the way to get through that. And it is a step-by-step process. And what we're trying to do is weave that together with some of these projects.
So one of the questions that I've been wondering about is a lot of the homeless coming from other areas to Reading, or is it generational? I heard that a lot of it's just generational.
Yeah, most of it is local. So most of our homeless is local. We do a point-in-time count. We know we have HMIS, which is the homeless management information system that we kind of take people through, so we know where they are and where they are in their case. Almost everybody is in that system of some sort, and if they're not, when they come into the mission, they actually have to check in, and we put them into HMIS. It allows us to know that they're getting the proper care, and we're connecting them to the services that they really need. And so we know where they're from. We know for those who aren't from here, the police and the Good News Rescue Mission partner up with the late Joe Wong contributed significantly to a program called Journey Home, which we would ask, are you from somewhere else? And if they said yes, we'd say, is there someone where you're from that would receive you if we were to pay your way to go back home, whether it's a family member, a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, an uncle. And if they said yes, and they had an address and they knew where they would go, Joe Wong's donation would fund the bus ticket. To get them home, and we would do that, and we've had such great success with that. So most of our homeless are from here that are receiving services.
So I'd heard numbers of 500 to 1,000 homelessness in our community, even up to 2,000. But that seems a little high.
No, 2,000 would not be. About 500 to 600 in the city, and then up to around 800 or so, 800, 900 total countywide. Okay. So, really manageable numbers if you look at it. One of the things to note, some people think, well, having homeless services, having services at all in your city is why you have homeless in your city. The fact that the Good News Rescue Mission is here is creating the problem is one of the arguments. And I would say, well, it's been here for 60 years. So, and most people tell me the homeless has gotten worse in 20. So if the mission's been here 60 and the homeless problem's gotten worse in 20, I would point to policies at the state level as to why the homeless problem is worse in Reading. And there is a few things that we can point to that had a drastic impact.
So what are those?
Well, Prop 47, and there's a couple of propositions that actually made it really difficult, and also the ruling up in Idaho. The Boise ruling kind of stated that cities couldn't basically enforce anti-camping laws unless there was a proven amount of beds that could take the people that they were that they were
that they could fill with a certain percentage, or they could take people off the streets, put them in beds.
You had to prove that you had the amount of the proper number of beds in order to enforce those laws.
Okay.
And we always had the proper number of beds. The mission has typically 100 plus extra beds available at the mission.
Wow.
However, I will say this winter we are projecting that we'll be at full capacity. More people are receiving services, and because of the Supreme Court ruling recently, we're able to enforce and encourage people to go to the mission with kind of a 24-hour notice, and moving. More people are receiving the services now, and so we're expecting that we're going to be at full capacity for the first time in decades. And I think that's really good because, one, I don't think it's humane for people to be living on the streets like that. And if they're getting into services, we have access and opportunity to help them get into additional services beyond just emergency care. Emergency care is like triage. It's like it's something you need now.
Right.
Food and shelter is basic, right?
Yes.
But beyond that, it's like most of us to thrive, you need a lot more, and some of these people need a lot more of that.
So I always wondered, for the people that were marginal, they get in a program, they start putting it together. Mm-hmm. There needs to be housing provided where they can secure their belongings, whatever they are, be able to take a shower, and be able to find transportation to a job. No matter, you just kind of going back into the workforce over time. And it seems like there might be a problem with that interim housing besides just having a bed. How is that working out, or what does that look like? What do we have in the city?
Yeah, I think there's the continuum of housing conversation is big, is huge. The way we see it at the mission is if we can get them into emergency housing, transition them into our micro shelters if they're stable. If they need addiction recovery, transition them into addiction recovery. From an addiction recovery program, which could last 9 to 18 months, you go from there to a sober living house, which is a house, a real home, you live with maybe 4, 5, 6 other people that who have graduated the program. And that allows you to have subsidized rent, but then save up money so that you can eventually become independent in a year or two. That transition right there, like this idea that people think that you can go from, let's say, being a drug addict, or just even if you're not on drugs, but living on the streets for a number of years,
Right.
or months or several months, and just go from that to back to independent living without transitional kind of living or community living it's unrealistic.
Right. Just the psychology part of it.
There's a lot of recidiv. You're going to see them go back to the streets. It's just there's a lot more involved in this process, and I think we're learning more about that. So that's why at the mission we're hoping to kind of pull these. We have a micro shelter project that's breaking ground. We have a groundbreaking ceremony next Tuesday.
And you're building a lot of that stuff?
Yeah, we already
helping out?
Yes. Yeah, we built we had 9 units
So
donated.
you're not just a theoretical guy.
No.
You're actually pounding nails or
Yeah.
organizing and making it happen.
Yeah, I'll be out there managing the crew and overseeing the construction. We'll have 17 units we're putting on the parcel on Spruce Street in Veda. And it's going to, and we colored them. We actually did research. The way that we painted the units was based on lifting their spirits. We don't,
Nice.
A lot of the buildings at the mission in years past, they kind of have a sand color. It's kind of drab and dreary.
Right.
We're changing all of that at the mission. Everything we're doing now is going to have color. It's going to be aesthetically pleasing. What we want is to change the horizon. We want to change what they look at and how they see themselves, and to get the help that they need. We talked last time about Prop 1, which is the mental health side. So you
Right.
got drug, mental health, and then you got those that are kind of choose homelessness as a lifestyle. The mental health is a whole big component there, and that's another reason why we've seen kind of a growth in homelessness is there's untreated mental health on our streets, and finally the state government is seeing that, and the people of California voted accordingly and said we see that too, and we want to see change, and that's going to help a lot with that in the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. Talking to a friend of mine who's a psychotherapist, and he works for like Kaiser, one of the big ones, and he directs all the other psychotherapists. And it was interesting for him because his observation was a portion of the homeless are foster kids that they're taken care of, they're 18, and then they're done, and they don't really have the skills and the access to housing and some of the things that they need, and they get in a bad cycle, whether it be drugs or unemployment, all these different issues. And so how is Redding, or do you run into that here?
Well, that is it. That brings up a really good point is, do you have people that are experts in how homelessness occurs in your local community? We need, in order to know those stories, you have to know those people. And you have to be able to hear those stories and to see patterns. Is there a pattern in our community that creates because every community is going to have a different story.
Sure.
I think that there might be a misnomer that the way to homelessness looks the same everywhere. That pathway looks different in Redding than it does in Detroit, or than it does in LA. Our homeless actually look different.
Sure.
I went down to LA. I went
Okay.
there, and I visited day resource centers down there. I traveled with the mission so that we did research to come back, and so that we were going to took elements of design, but we also realized that what we have here, the type of homelessness and our problems, are very different. Down in LA, their rescue missions are just trying to keep people alive because there's so many overdoses.
Wow.
Here we have overdoses, but our main concern is not just keeping people alive. We actually have the ability. We have a more stabilized homeless community that actually can receive care. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to keep people alive and then triage them so that they can get additional services. And there are some people that kind of break through, but it is a massive problem down there, and it looks different than it does here.
Right. We're such a different rural area,
Mm-hmm.
and welfare and the different things that happen here, the ACE scores that we have that are high.
Yeah.
With children and people that have grown up here generationally. In some ways, it's almost like my job is, I know the welfare track just because I grew up in it and I understand it, and other things are very foreign to me. And I'm wondering, is that a part of the psychology that you have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, I think that could very well be true. I think our also just our housing costs are way different than some of these other communities too. So some of the numbers, to give you some of the numbers in LA, the money that they get for homeless to build a unit, let's say of transitional housing, case managed housing, costs about $600,000 to $700,000 per one bedroom.
Wow.
Okay, here in Redding, we're building those micro shelters. It's actually the mission is putting up 51% of the funding, and the city is providing the 49% or whatever. And we're going to build 17 units for $100,000 of public funds.
Wow. Wow.
So to give you an idea, like we need to see this money going to work and in our community in a way that's actually effective. And it needs to go. You need people that are in leadership that actually make sure that it's producing the results we want to.
Well, one of the questions that I have is talking to the other candidates. Doesn't seem like they really are doing the research. That's my impression. It's like blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm running for council. I want to do good, but I really don't know. My hands aren't dirty during doing the work and really measuring what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I have talking points, but I really don't know the data.
Yeah, I mean, when I ran a couple of years ago, I felt like the field was different then. There was at least a handful, maybe a half dozen of us that were meeting with directors, were very active, involved either in commissions or working with the city on some level. And I don't see that this time. Honestly, most of the candidates I think are great people, but I don't see the depth that I saw a few years ago. And I think that Barry Tippin, our city manager, because I'm appointed on council,
Sure.
I kind of understand our inner city policies and stuff. But whenever there's an election year, he tells his directors, open your calendar to candidates, make sure that they're available, so that if you have questions, that they can be educated on the issues. I don't know. It doesn't seem like by the answers that offer is being taken advantage of, and I think it's a real miss for our community because somebody's going to get elected that doesn't know what's going on, and it'll take a while for them to get up to speed.
Right. Yeah. Is it a beauty contest? How well do you look on camera or whatever?
Right,
I don't know. And I understand it. I get it.
You look pretty good,
important.
Wayne. Why don't you run?
Yeah,
You'll be good.
yeah. I like the interview process.
Yeah.
One of the things because I believe in relationship, obviously Relationship Nation, one of the questions I have, what is the best way for a citizen or a group of citizens to approach city council, to approach change, to bring ideas? What is your view, your opinion of the best way for us citizens to get involved in change?
Oh, I love that question. Because it's such a great, what it is, it lends itself to what's the best strategy to take if you want to affect change in a city, and it is relationship. And let me tell you though practically how that translates.
Okay.
So relationship, because you got Relationship Nation here, and you clearly care about that. But some people say, well, that's fluffy.
Right.
That's touchy-feely, like whatever it is. It's like,
till you're in an argument.
Yeah, the testosterone in me goes, oh, but
Yeah.
but the reality of it is the reason why we're able to work so well with the rodeo is because when you get face-to-face, something can happen.
Right.
Partnership can happen.
Right.
So let's turn relationship creates partnership.
Correct.
And you can't do relationship with personal attacks. You can't do relationship getting up and making assumptions about someone's intent.
Right.
What you have to do is you have to put aside assumptions about someone's intent and say, let me go get the facts. Let me contact that council member and find out for myself what they're about.
Okay.
Have coffee with them. And if they won't have coffee with you, or they won't take a call, or they won't answer an email, then, that's a problem. But I would say most of us are one email away, a phone call away. We're 1 degree separated. We're a town of 100,000 people or less. And we're all 1 degree separated, so
Right.
it's pretty easy to get a hold of us. Someone that knows me, I'm
Sure.
pretty sure.
Right.
We're
Right.
just we're that tight.
We're just a small community, which is kind of great, which kind of segues into another question I have. It seems like we have a number of special interest groups here. We've got the Bethel crowd, we've got the rodeo, we've got the McConnell. I mean, there's more than that, obviously, but those are the big ones.
Yep.
And I think some people go, oh, there's this big agenda.
Right.
Especially I hear this with the Bethel. Oh, Bethel's going to control Reading.
Right.
Or the Good Old Boy Network
Yeah.
is controlling. We can't get anything done
Right.
because we just want to roll back to the past of the 1800s or whatever. Or the McConnell has so much money, they're puppet masters and this and that. And so, I want to hear your view on special interest groups, council members,
Yep.
influence.
Oh, that's great. Well, special interest groups are just that. We do have them. They're not bad. There are a number of candidates that are saying, I'm running to break up the special interests of the current council.
Drain the swamp.
Yeah, and I go, well, your sign is in the tribe's property. And I go, okay, let's just be honest. There's special interests everywhere.
Right.
A special interest is just a collection of people that organize for the purpose of a political agenda, a particular agenda that they want to see happen in the city. Organizing is a good thing. We saw that it was a good thing that the rodeo organized around the agenda for a long-term lease.
Right.
I think that do I think there was some misunderstanding about our intent and assumptions about my intent or Tanessa's or Mayor Odette's intent or other council members? Yeah, but that's okay. We worked through that. Once we got to the table face to face, that it became really clear how we can partner together and what we each of us cared about, and we're getting through it so quickly. That's okay. Water under the bridge, right? That kind of stuff. But it is a special interest group. I think that the local tribe, it's the same sort of way. Like it's okay to have an organized agenda to try and see something happen or to try and move the needle in some way. When it comes to local churches, let's say Bethel, for instance,
that's easy to identify.
I've looked at that, and because I don't go to Bethel, I go to Risen King, and so some could say I'm breaking the juggernaut up because I go to a different church. No, I have a lot of friends that go to Bethel. You do too. I've done business with people that they go there. It's 10% of our city, right? But some say it says 10% of our city, but 60% of our city council. And that's a problem of power. And I said, well, back in the 90s, we had 5 people on city council that all went to the same Catholic church. But I haven't found any clippings or articles about that people were concerned about that special interest. And if the reason is because just because someone goes to the same church doesn't mean you're going to see all of a sudden Catholic policies.
Right.
Or Bethel policies or something like that. I go, well, show me something that shows me, one, that they're organizing around the same political vision. Whatever that is, show me, because I haven't seen that vote. I've asked our staff, I've asked directors, I've asked our city manager, I've asked other council members that don't go to Bethel, previous and now, and I haven't seen a Bethel vote. So all I see is the facts are you have 3 council members currently that go to Bethel, one who is terming out. Not terming out, but decided not to run again for a third term. So Julie Winter is not running again. So, but you have 3 council members that all attend the same church, and that church says love God and love your city. And some people translate loving your city as public service.
Right.
So they decided to run, but I've seen them vote against each other.
Right. That does happen.
Even since I've been on for 78 days or 82 days, whatever it is now, we've been on differences on different issues, and that is healthy. So maybe there's a core values that are the same, let's say faith-wise, but the way they translate that into policy is I haven't seen a collective vision. And so I'm less concerned about that. I would say I have my eyes open to other special interests in our city, but I don't see them as bad. I just see them as something that is important to listen to and to get in the middle of, which I'm not afraid of.
Right. Yeah. Because I think with special interest groups. McConnell got a lot of flack over, the glass bridge and all that, but yet it's been a really incredible draw for Reading.
Yeah,
I mean, I see people coming from all over the country coming to Reading and going, wow, I never knew this existed. And it's a world-class design bridge.
Absolutely. It
world
is.
class.
Now it's our icon. It's part of our flag now. It's part of our logo, our symbolism.
It's part of our culture.
Yeah, and arts and culture has a way of doing that. Is you're always going to have people that are going to be opposed to something,
Sure.
and they're going to say whatever they're going to say, and that's okay. I think actually those voices matter too,
because
actually they
matter.
make projects better. They might tighten up the budgets. It might whatever it needs. It's okay. I think that. McConnell's a great example of being pretty out there with their agenda. Their agenda is pretty clear. Their bylaws are pretty clear about how they have to spend, and they can't just, they keep pouring into the community in different ways. I mean, we're about to see the opening of pipeline over there on California Street in the old Bell Towers building, and that brick building with the copper roof and all that kind of stuff. The amount of money that they've poured into that wouldn't be sustainable for a market rate project at all.
Right.
They do certain things just to do them, to have an impact and move the needle in a community that matches their vision. And they're pretty open about that.
Right.
Their projects last a long time. They take a long time, and they have the time.
Right.
They're willing to sit on something for 10, 15 years while it's in the red tape. Most of us, you and I, can't afford that.
We would never be able to do
We
that.
wouldn't be able to do that. So, but they're pretty out front with it. Does that mean you have to agree with every project they do? No. Don't. Come speak about it. I think you should. We want to hear your voice.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that they just get a pass on everything. I mean, they also want to hear how the community is,
Sure.
receiving them. But on some things, they're willing to push through some opposition as long as the community at large is for it.
Right.
Well,
they have a pretty big vision.
Yeah.
To enhance the community.
Yeah.
It isn't like they're trying to pull it back to a different era or something that wouldn't serve the people.
Well, let's imagine a world for a second, Wayne. Imagine a world without those 3 or 4 special interest groups. Imagine a world without Bethel in Reading, without the rodeo in Reading, without McConnell in Reading, and without the tribe in Reading.
Right.
What do we have? I mean, those collection of special interests have brought a ton of value to our community in different ways, and some controversy, right?
Right.
Anytime you
Always.
do something big, and all of those groups have done big things, it's never going to be 100% done with 100%
No.
appreciation,
We're not all going to
approval,
rally
or
around
it. Yeah.
and let's all hug it out. There's
Yeah.
going to be,
But-
there's going to be some heavy discussions.
But they're still here because, by and large, there's still support and, I think, vision that the wider community benefits from.
Absolutely. And we're kind of glad, because the other thing is we're all just working, trying to make a living and raise our families or do whatever we're doing. We don't always come together and have a big vision, and they can solidify it either like, no, we don't want that, or yeah, let's get on board, or I need more information. And at least we have an opinion, but people are movers and shakers and doing things. And so it's always an interesting topic when you talk about special interest groups. I want to segue now.
All right, great.
Okay. I have a lot of people that complain about our roads and why we cannot take care of them. And I think it's worth a deep dive on talking about budgets, why we're not able to maintain our roads, what our deficits are, possible solutions. Any input,
Oh, yeah.
we would be happy to hear.
a
I know
big-
the public out here wants to hear.
It's a big conversation. I mean, we drive on it every day. We don't want to,
Oh, there's roads. They suck.
Yeah, you're like, no one wants to bottom out their vehicle,
No, take out your tire.
Although a lot of people in Reading have lifted trucks, but
I don't.
yeah. So for you Tesla drivers, bam,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
That's our goal, is to keep enough potholes to keep the Teslas, grounded to the ground. No, I'm joking.
No.
So, no, this is a big issue. So if we were to maintain our roads at a proper level, it would be about $14 million budget a year. Right now we get four is kind of allocated in the budget, $4 million a year. And then we get a little bit extra from RABA. When RABA saves money, we get a little.
Now,
towards,
what is RABA?
RABA is our Reading Area Bus Authority, right?
Okay.
So it's our public transit that's funded by federal and state dollars. Most everything is grant dollars and a general fund that's really going into that. And whenever they have savings, they get to put it towards transport-related costs, which is our roads help benefit our buses as well. And that helps us kind of maintain above and beyond our general fund a little bit. So the other way that we bump it up to about $10 million a year.
Okay.
So we just went from 4 to
Right.
maybe 6 or 5 or 6, and then up to 10 is through grants.
Okay.
So we get about 3/4 of what we need through those 3 sources, but it still falls short of what everyone feels. And even if we did it at the level that we wanted, people would still say, what about my road? And then we do a traffic study, and it's like not very many cars go on that road, but you're right, it's not great. But we have 60 square miles with the tax. So we have 60 square miles with the tax base of Chico with double the size.
Right.
Okay. So
how does the state allocate the money? They don't do it by seems like we're way behind. We have a lot more roads, a lot less density.
the state only allocates things to projects that are specific to their agenda. So right now their agenda is multi-mobility. So they're going to fund Bocelli.
Okay.
Because we're adding multi-mobility, which is, what is that? That's more pedestrian and more bikes and cars. So we were able to redesign all of Bocelli. You notice, like when I came into your facility here today,
Yes.
it's off of Bocelli. The left turn lane is both ways a left turn lane, and
Yes.
the single lane now both ways left turn lane.
Right.
And now you got bike lanes, right?
Yeah. Did you take your electric bike here?
I did not.
Oh.
No, I have too many campaign signs in the van right now, so I can't do that. Yeah. So that's that gives you a little bit of insight. We can, there are certain things that could happen that could help increase that budget and help us with some of those projects. But it would be citizen-led if that were ever to be the case.
So explain citizen-led. What does that mean?
Well, if you were to ever do a sales tax initiative, for instance, which is going to raise questions about the budget, which I've dug into. We should talk about the budget. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But a citizen-led initiative would be 50 plus 1, as far as just 51% or 50% plus 1 would need to vote on it, and it would be. And what's nice about that, that's the citizens' money. So it would go to the city, but it would be directly and specifically directed to what the citizens wanted it to go to.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be able to be spent on just whatever.
Right.
CalPERS or any other unfunded liabilities or things like that. The citizens should say, no, this money. So just give you an idea. We only get 1% of 7.25% sales tax.
Okay. That's
as a city.
interesting.
So that gives us about $30 million a year of revenue.
Okay.
If we were to raise the sales tax by 1 cent, which would be 8.25%, which would bring us up to the level, I believe, of Chico and some other cities of our size. Almost every city over 60,000 people have about 8.25% in the state of California. If we were to do that, that would be an additional $30 million.
Okay.
That would double our sales tax revenue.
Wow.
Just with 1 cent. And the reason is because we don't get all of that 7.25%. We only get 13% of the 7.25%.
Wow.
Which is
okay. I think that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
That. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So
to me.
So that's why a specific tax, if ever were done by the citizens, let's say the citizens say, we want money, a certain amount of dollars to go to the rodeo grounds, or we want a certain amount of dollars to go to the formerly Big League Dreams.
Okay.
We want those dollars to go to another park or to police and fire and keep the park ranger program or something like that, or some towards roads and some towards, you could get very specific of what percent of that sales tax revenue on any given year goes to specifically to those things.
So how would citizens put that on the ballot, or how would that be decided? What would that process potentially look like if citizens banded together and said, we've had enough of crappy roads or X, Y, and Z, and we want this? How would that go go
So there's a
about?
certain number of signatures you have to get.
Okay.
And then you have to write the ballot language, and there's actually great templates. Yuba City has one on the ballot this November.
Okay.
And you can grab their template. And then I would say what you have to do is have a special interest group.
Okay.
Form.
Which we've talked
Because
about.
you need to get some agreement what you think the by and large the wider community would care about, so that
Okay.
it would pass, right? So
Right.
I would hope that group would do a lot of deep surveying of the community and what matters to them, so that you made sure that you're hitting those points with that.
Right.
But we have a lot of services that could be offered, and that a lot of services that our community wants, but we don't have the tax base to support all of our wants.
Okay.
A lot of our sales tax revenue does come from out of town people. So our tourists pay sales tax. People driving by on I-5 and stop at Best Buy pay sales tax here, and a percentage that stays with the city. So when we add that extra 1 cent, everything the tourists spend and the passerbyers spend in Reading, that extra 1 cent, 100% of it stays in Reading.
Right.
Right. So right now at 7.25%, only 13% of it stays in Reading, but that extra 1 cent, 100% would stay in Reading. That's huge.
That's very huge.
So anyway, that's a potential. I don't think it should be elected officials should not be the ones to put that forward. One, I think there's just a lack of trust with elected officials as it is, but the people, if they decided to move forward with it, that's where you can see a marked difference in some of the road improvements.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So one of the concerns that I have, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go into real estate development, real estate commercial. So with the advent of COVID and Amazon really taking hold, where people are ordering everything and not using the local services, retailers as much, we're starting to see restaurants close. We're starting to see some of the big box empty, or there's problems there. How do you see that as a council member? You also come from a real estate background like I do, real estate development. I mean, we understand a lot of that.
Yep.
What's your thoughts about that for Reading?
Yeah, I mean, Reading is we're in a great time to look at where the market is moving. To push against the market is not wise, I don't think. You know, the market is moving. You never want
to bet against the market.
Yeah, if the market's moving to, online sales, there are certain things that people don't like buying online. And there are certain things that even if they buy it online, they would buy in person if it was available to them in a collection, in a sort of, right now our problem with our commercial outside of the mall area, problem with our commercial is that it downtown has been in the past more, you had to drive and it was like one thing. What you need to do you need to collect your commercial so that when you park your car, you can hit 3 things at once. You can get your meal plus hit 2 stores that you like.
Right.
If you don't have that, then your buying habit is probably not convenient, and so then you're probably going to go to the next convenient thing, which is likely online.
Right.
Because to make a whole trip to just one store, unless it's like going to get a big TV or something like that, it's
or you're bored.
Yeah,
you just got to get out of the house.
Exactly. So I think we got to move with the market. We need to be, and that's what I hope our EDC and our Reading Chamber is helping our businesses do. That's not really a city council job, but because I'm a business owner, of course, I can have those conversations with and to make sure that we're helping our retailers move with the times. One of the things that we're going to do in January, and this came from a conversation that I had with Rebecca Baer, who's now our president of the Shasta Economic Development Corporation, is that we're going to do an export expo. So how do you take a company who normally sells products just here in Reading to Reading people and teach them how to become an export, how to actually build a service or product that can be bought by people outside the area? Not just in online sales, but also, but distribution and fulfillment and other types of businesses. We need a healthy import and export economy. Just like the government does. Right. Just like the federal government, looks at the balanced trade. so we want to do this Export Expo because we want to showcase the companies that are exporting that you don't even know about, that are serving company or businesses and people nationwide with their products, and you had no idea they're here in Reading. But also to inspire people to start thinking about your business in a different way. You look at Chronic Disaster as a service company, right? Mm-hmm. Them expanding to Chico and to other cities is another way of headquartering here, but exporting that same knowledge to another community, but they're from Reading.
Right.
Big Black Bear Diner, the Adventure Challenge, Beneficial Insectary, which they sell bugs.
Wow.
They sell bugs to everyone. Really? They're just bug makers. And it's amazing.
Yes.
You have Technosoil, or you have different, and we have a lot of these companies that are doing incredible things, but it all started from people that are here thinking, how can I do something differently and sell it outside of Reading? And and that will elevate our economy, because that's new money coming into our economy that gets spent on our restaurants. If you don't want restaurants closing down, you got to have new money circulating into our economy. So that's what I'd love to see.
Yeah, interesting, very interesting. I know that there's a number of different consultants that have moved to Reading. We actually, we were in Rotary together, and we had a couple that was working with NASA on building, I think it was spacesuits.
Yes.
And they're out of Whitmore.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And they're doing amazing work.
Yeah, there are a lot of those kind of like hidden, undercover, really smart people and businesses that are in our community, and we need to elevate those. And really, what we want is just a thriving economy. What I find is that we talked about it last time, is that people want rural elbow room. We want space, but we want nice, commercial spaces as well, and restaurants and shopping and things like that. And we want a good balance of that. And in order to achieve that, is you got to press on all of those levers. That's why the economic incentive policy is so important to me.
Sure.
Updating that. It hasn't been updated in 30 years in a significant way. And it's important to me that we collect ourselves, that we form a vision for what we want to attract to our area, how we want to incentivize economic growth, and doing it in a smart way that's using the levers that can be directly, I would say, the metrics can be tracked. So those metrics are sales tax and property tax. Those are the easiest metrics. So I really want to see direct ties to those things. And then I would love for it to be updated every October by council to look to the next year to say, what does next year need to look like? What do we need to incentivize next year to keep our community growing in the right ways?
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're the man for the job.
Hey, I appreciate it. I hope so. I hope the voters do. But I'll say this: I'm not going anywhere. So, if you don't vote for me now, you might.
You'll be voting for me later.
No,
hopefully.
I just care too much about this stuff to not be involved, and I have the relationships at the city, and I feel like now's the time to do something. And it's about making government work for the people, remove unnecessary friction, and I don't think it's that hard. And what's great about local government, one of the things about federal government, it moves slow.
Correct.
State government moves slow. That's probably a good thing. They should move slow.
Right.
Local government gets to move quicker because it's closer to the people. Because if you can about face and change things in one election, and so I think this is a critical election to make sure that we move in that right direction for the next 4 years.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for joining us, and maybe we'll have another interview, and we'll talk about some other issues that concern us here in the Reading greater area.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Joshua.
Wayne.
Thanks for
All
showing
right.
up.
Yep.
Bye.